So I've finally launched my very own sample library company, and I'm thrilled beyond measure. This has been at the front of my mind for the better part of a year now, and here we are, the first walkthrough of many. In fact, this is the inaugural walkthrough of a series of libraries that I'll be calling Imaginary Instruments. I'll talk a little bit about what the Imaginary Instrument series is all about here, but I don't want to bog this walkthrough down too much. There is a video where I do a deep dive on that. If you've got the time, I would pause this one, go watch that. It's like the perfect touchstone. Speaking of time, there will always be a no-yap version of the walkthrough over on the Hearth and Hollow audio channel, where it's just demonstrations of me playing it. No talking. I'm often of that persuasion myself. So, without further ado, the Vitharhalsi. The Vitharhalsi, like all imaginary instruments, is fictional, but it's not faked. Every sample you'll be hearing is a real performance, captured acoustically. There's no synthesis or physical modeling going on. But I'm playing the instrument so strangely that it stops representing what it was and becomes, in this case, the Vitharhalsi. Vitharhalsi roughly translates to wooden throat, and it does have that broad, kind of ragged sound. Kind of works in accordance with that old tradition of some kind of droning bed beneath some ancient hymnal singing. You can think of like a hurdy-gurdy or bagpipes or something. The instrument itself has this very blocky body, which kind of indicates that it could be played on the lap just as well as it could be played upright. It has a fretted neck, and right next to that neck is this chamber that's strung with sympathetic strings, which gives it that kind of shimmering, haunted resonance. This is actually something we can control, but I'll come back around to that after we go through all the articulations. So let's do that first. The drones are certainly the central pillar to the instrument. It's what the instrument's all about. We've got drones standard and drones aggressive. The standard drones are standard, but they're played a little bit more smoothly. The attack is very even. The rebowing is a little bit more regular and kind of controlled. And the aggressive just has a bit of a bark at the front of the note. And the rebowing is a little bit more frantic. Like, it happens more frequently. It's just overall a more aggressive sound. And then third here on the list, which, by the way, we can select the articulations in a number of ways. We have a drop-down menu. We have icons that represent the articulation, and we can also key switch these. Third articulation, drones combo. You can see down here this little indicator shows that the mod wheel blends between standard and aggressive. And I, more than often, am reaching for this. However, there's a really good use for having the aggressive and standards split. The combo makes it such that the standard drone sound is on the quieter layers, and as you get louder by pushing the mod wheel, you start to hear the aggressive recordings. Now, perhaps it goes without saying, there will be times where you just want the sound of those even drones. And if you want those to be loud, you don't want it to automatically be switching to the aggressive recordings, so that you have a little bit more total control over the way you're using your dynamics and the samples you'll be hearing as a result. The short notes I love, specifically on the Vitharhalsi. They're really brushy, and they kind of have this kind of a gutsy sense that brings out a lot of the wood. The short notes also really put a spotlight on that sympathetic resonance, which I promise we will get to, but I think it really shines with that transient stuff. You might have noticed that when I switched to the short articulations, the knobs down here changed from a kind of a standard attack and release control to a tighten and dynamics knob. This is true across all the articulations. We've got articulation specific controls here, and then we'll always have our little global reverb send right next to it. For the shorts, the tighten knob, well, it's probably best described through demonstration. So this is obviously just a really brilliant control to have when you're trying to dial in the way this thing behaves when you're playing really swift passages, or when you're trying to get those shorts to not sound so biting. The dynamics knob is also a really good way to kind of tame the instrument or shape it. This simply controls how much dynamic response is given via velocity. So with the knob cranked all the way up, we have the total velocity spectrum. So dynamics all the way down, we now have a much more even response when we play. Just to be clear, even with the dynamics knob all the way down, we're not limiting what samples we hear, we're just limiting their volume. So the shorts are letting us reach a little bit beyond those standard characteristics of the Vitharhalsi being a droning instrument, but the next articulations are really doubling down on that. The half notes are kind of what they say on the tin. These are recordings of a performed half note drone. And as you probably saw, this little clock icon popped up when we selected it, indicating that this is a tempo synced articulation. Now, not only are these tempo synced, but they adapt to your playing such that when you change notes during your playing, it does not break the pattern. So if you are on beat 3 of this half note drone and you play a new note, as long as those notes are overlapping, you're not going to start over from beat 1. This gives you the ability to play really like phrase-based melodic stuff while taking full advantage of the kind of the kinetic energy baked into this articulation. I think it's no exaggeration to say that it could be the most useful part of this library. I find myself using these in cases where I expect to be using the regular drones, but then I just give these half notes a try, and so frequently, especially if there's some kind of implied pulse in the music, these give it a really particular sense of intentionality. I'm also very frequently surprised by how adaptable it is. I can play some fairly busy stuff, speedy or melodic or even little ornamentations, and it just kind of takes to it. Some of this can be attributed to the controls down here. We have the ability to change the speed, so we can do halftime, the actual recorded speed, we can double the speed, then we can also convert this to double time triplets or our half note triplets. the release here, this is just like a release, like on an attack release control, but it's a very specifically shaped and timed envelope specific to these tempo-based recordings. What this does is basically dials in just how kind of snappy and responsive your note changes are going to feel. So the half notes are sort of Swiss Army knife or jack of all trades. The groove is our master of one. It's just stylistically rich enough so that no other kind of programming can match it, but it's not so complex that it's a one-trick pony. Our last articulation here are the tremolos, specifically the kind of trem that feels like leaves on a tree in a strong wind, especially that time of year when all the leaves are starting to dry out. So it's got that kind of a bristling energy to it. This kind of bristling energy is something that I think in general the Vitharhalsi just has in spades, and it makes it an excellent agitator. I mean that very affectionately. When you blend the Vitharhalsi with like a standard string library, what you get back is just this really tangible feeling, more believable, like it's got fingerprints all over it. Notwithstanding the fact that if you're looking for that kind of fantasy-driven, kind of ancient, old world sound, it's got you there too. But really, moreover, this is something I'm often looking to do, which is how can I take the gloss off of something? You know, how can I take this perfectly performed library and make it feel like it's been lived in for a long time? And I think the Vitharhalsi is perfect for that. Okay, let's jump over to some of the features that I've kind of been hinting at finally. And we'll start with the mic signals. Got a close in a room mic. We're not reinventing the wheel here, just a way to dial in the vividness and the sense of space. A bit more interestingly is the sympathetic root control over here. This allows you to sort of change the tuning of the sympathetic strings. So whatever you select here is going to be the note that leaps out the most and resonates the most in that set of sympathetic strings. So if you're playing in D minor or D major, selecting D as your root for the sympathetic strings makes a lot of sense. It'll really kind of anchor that wash of resonance where you want it to be. But you're free to put it wherever you'd like. You could, if you're in D major, it could be the third, it could be the fifth. You could do the minor six. You get the point. You can put it wherever you want, and then you dial in how much of the resonance you're hearing. So if you don't want any sympathetic strings to ring out, you can dial them all the way back and get a much drier, kind of tight sound. this feature is something that I've like just dreamt of for a long time. So I'm very obviously excited about it. But I'm just really excited to like get it into other people's hands, you know, in the hopes that it tickles you as much as it tickles me. But really like the vibe that you can get from it is like very unbeatable, especially since it's really responding to your playing. Beneath the sympathetic strings, we have our phrase selector. So the phrases are up here in this upper orange range. These are performed phrases, and we've got a selection from C major to A major and then C minor to A minor, which of course this does not include all possible keys, which is why we have our little tuner over here. So if you wanted it to be like an F sharp major, you'd maybe do G major and tune it down a half step, and now you're good to go. And then of course you can blend that volume so that if you want them to stick out really prominently over top of what you're playing in the lower register, you can do that, vice versa. There's no strict organization to these phrases, but as a general rule, the lower keys will favor kind of the lower range of the instrument. And as you move up, you'll get a little bit more complex as you go before you kind of move into a higher range. And then that higher range will start again with more simple phrases, on and on. Folks, thanks for lending your ears and checking out the Vitharhalsi with me. If you dig it, it's over on hearthandhollowaudio.com. It is made for the free version of Contact 8, all downloadable through native access. Everything should be nice and streamlined on that front. I've been trying to find a way to describe like just how excited I am that the Vitharhalsi is real and in the world, and that this series has begun in earnest, and that it's not all just imaginary anymore. But I'm just excited, very excited to have you along. There's a lot more coming, much weirder instruments, much simpler instruments, and real instruments as well. So if this is all interesting to you, definitely follow closely, subscribe to the channel if you want, and certainly the same goes for the Hearth and Hollow audio channel. Just really excited to kick this new chapter off with you guys. Hey, take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.